Welcome back in.
Local pod.
Mathis podcast right here on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, whichever and wherever you guys get your podcast. Again, we highly recommend Spotify because you can watch and listen. Unless you're driving, then of course do not watch your screen. But there's going to be a lot of cool things that we plug throughout today's show, including some photos, a video of Zion Williamson and what he's up to as of late, and much more. And we're going to close out the show with some really big news. Spence, would you say it's the biggest news we've had on the show without giving it away, or is this maybe top two?
This is number one.
Number one,
by
without
far.
a doubt. Without a doubt, the number one biggest news that we've ever unveiled here on the Chris Mathis podcast, TCM Pod on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm Chris Mathis, joined by Spencer Mathis, my co-host, back again. And today, finally have a better setup instead of being in a tight spot. I'm in a studio per se, and it looks a lot better. And Spencer's always got a nice setup there with natural lighting and whatnot. And excited to have you guys tuned in to the Chris Mathis podcast. First and foremost, have to recap things from last week and early into this week, starting off with the player of the week. And for me, I go no further than LeBron James, 37 years old. He leads the league in points per game at 37 years old. Pretty unreal. Here's his stat line over the last 9 games. 56 points, 23 points, 50 points, 31 points, 30 points, 19 points, 36 points, 38 points, and 38 points at age 37. And in those games, he's had 4 games in which he had 10 or more rebounds, 6 games in which he had 8 or more rebounds. So unreal stat line for LeBron James. And several of those games, he's shooting over 55% from the field. So LeBron James, hands down, my player of the week. And again, not a big basketball guy until playoff time comes about. And if we're calling you guys out for your basketball stat line, that means that you're doing pretty good. So we had an awesome video of LeBron dunking on his former teammate, Kevin Love, that we threw up on the Twitter page at TCM_pod earlier this week. And after LeBron dunked on his former teammate, Kevin Love, they were shown during a timeout dapping each other up, and Kevin Love was having a good time, all about it. Like, hey, you just made me relevant again. But either way, LeBron James, my player of the week. What a year for the 37-year-old veteran. What is this, 18 years now in the league? Something like that?
Yeah, he's a stud. He's an old stud. He's an aging stud, and he's still one of the top players in the league somehow. But my player of the week also comes from basketball, but this one's coming from March Madness, which is a bigger deal than the NBA at this point in the NBA's run through. But Doug Edder out of St. Peter's, the guard for St. Peter's. I got inspiration for this because we were in St. Petersburg, Florida over the previous weekend. So, well, you're there most of the time. I was just visiting. And St. Peter's guard Doug Eddert absolutely went off in the University of Kentucky game in round 1 for St. Peter's. He scored 20 points, went 5 for 7 from the field, 2 for 2 from 3-pointers, but also 8 for 8 from the free throw line. And a lot of his fouls, he gets fouled a good amount of the time on 3-point shots. So this guy's good at drawing fouls. He's really just a spot shooter. He's a role player. He's not even a starter. But then against Murray State, he put up 13 points. He went 4 for 6, 1 for 2 from the 3-point line, and 4 for 6 from free throws. And St. Peter's is in the Sweet 16 starting Thursday, and I can't wait to watch Doug Eddert. But you have a picture that you're going to be throwing up here in a second of Doug Eddert and the deal he just struck with, I believe, Buffalo Wild Wings. So the St. Peter's guard Doug Eddert has signed an NIL deal with Buffalo Wild Wings, which is definitely in the 6 figures, which is insane because this guy was not well known at all. I mean, he's a backup player for a college called St. Peter's. They're ranked number 14th coming into the tournament. Now they're in the Sweet 16. I don't remember who they're facing this week, but he also signed a deal with Barstool Sports to release his own merch. So this guy is killing it right now. I mean, look at him. He's 6'2", 185, soaking wet maybe, but with all the women around him after what he's done, he's probably always soaking wet. But yeah, my player of the week is Doug Eddert from St. Peter's, a guard, backup guard, absolute stud.
The furthest thing from a stooge, and we're going to get into the stooge of the week, but awesome player of the week there. I thought that was pretty neat, that NIL deal with Buffalo Wild Wings. Can't go wrong. Hopefully he's got the Buffalo hot because those wings are by far the best. And I even have ventured out into the boneless a little bit here and there, and they're actually pretty good. So I'm not going to shame boneless anymore. I do prefer traditional, but I'm not going to shame the boneless wings
Boneless
anymore.
wings are glorified chicken tenders.
Yeah, 100%. And they're good, but they're just not a chicken wing.
Yep.
So this has to be one of the coolest segments, and it varies each and every week because you just don't know with all of the stupidity in today's world with coaches, even team owners, and especially players around the league in all 4 major U.S. sports. Stooge of the week. Spence, kick it off. Stooge of the week.
Well, my stooge of the week comes from 2 NFL franchises who made a trade today with one of the biggest trades you'll see. I mean, this NFL offseason has absolutely been crazy, but my 2 stooges of the week are the Miami Dolphins.
Who?
Yes, the Miami Dolphins and the Kansas City Chiefs. This trade, in my opinion, is a loss for both teams. The Chiefs, they're past their window right now, so they traded Tyreek Hill. Patrick Mahomes' top target now is Mecole Hardman, who was not very good last year. 625 yards as a number 2 receiver. They picked up Juju Smith-Schuster, who was injured last season. He's going to have to be the number 1 guy. We've seen him fail as the number 1 in Pittsburgh when Antonio Brown left. And then you look over at the Dolphins, who are trading a 2022 first-round pick, a second-round pick also in 2022, a 4th-round pick in 2022, and then a 4th and 6th-round pick in the 2023 draft for one receiver who's nearing his age 28 season, so he's got about 2 more really good years left in him. He's I guess you could say he's entering his prime or almost out of his prime. He's been in his prime for a couple of years now, but he at age 28 is whenever you're supposedly at your top peak athletic performance in the NFL and the NBA. Tyreek Hill's there right now, so the Dolphins are trading for Tyreek Hill, and they're going to be pairing him with Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki, and that receiving core and tight end core is great for the Miami Dolphins. But then you look at who they have at quarterback. Yeah. I mean, they have a new head coach, a young head coach, looks really fun. But I think they're going to struggle next year with Tua Tagovailoa at quarterback, or Tungavolia, however you want to say it.
Tunglavoi. Yeah, there you go.
Tunglavoi. There you go. But, I mean, I just don't see them doing anything. I mean, they're paying – how much are they paying Tyreek Hill? I think it's like a 3-year deal worth $75 million, and then the last couple of years are void years, so they're not really there. Yeah. So Tyreek Hill going to a Miami Dolphins offense with a quarterback whose average depth per target is at 7 yards. I mean, this guy, he's the most accurate passer in the league because he doesn't attempt to throw passes over 7 yards. Jalen Waddle somehow put up 1,000 yards last year, but his average yards perception was at 9 point something. I mean, he should be one of the best deep targets in the league like Tyreek Hill is, but now they're both on a squad with a quarterback that doesn't attempt to throw the ball deep, and I just don't see this really being worth it for Miami. They're giving up a lot of draft capital. They're not a team that's built to win now, really. I mean, they're trying to become one, but with Tua at QB, I just don't think he's ever going to reach like even Jimmy G levels. Like he's a game manager, but he doesn't even manage the game well enough because he is not a threat throwing the ball deep. So I think it's a bad trade for the Dolphins. And then the Chiefs, I mean, Patrick Mahomes, he's going to be throwing to Mecole Hardman and Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, he's still got Travis Kelce, but on the defensive side of the ball, they lost Tyrann Mathieu. And this whole thing, they're losing two of their top players on the team because Patrick Mahomes signed that unbelievable contract a couple of years ago, and they can't afford to keep their own guys in their house, and now they're trading them away. I mean, they're getting a lot of draft capital out of it, but I think this shows that the Chiefs are past their Super Bowl window. They only won 1 Super Bowl with Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes together on the same squad, and Tyrann Mathieu. But if you go back to 2019 after they won the Super Bowl versus the San Francisco 49ers, you can recall Tyreek Hill saying that they were going to win 7 Super Bowls. And that just shows how difficult it is to win a Super Bowl in the NFL, let alone keep your players, which if you pay your star-studded quarterback as much as they paid Patrick Mahomes, you're not going to be able to. I think that moving forward, if you are a team with a franchise quarterback, you hope to God that this guy takes pay cuts like Tom Brady does, because that's the only reason the Buccaneers have stayed together so long. That's how you win 7 rings, and no one's ever going to do that again because everyone wants the money. So my 2 stooges of the week, the Miami Dolphins and the Kansas City Chiefs both losing this trade. And I think we'll both see that over this season, with the Dolphins maybe being a fringe playoff team and the Chiefs just lost their top target on their offense. So it's going to be a wild season for both of these teams. Maybe Tua picks it up, but I just don't see it happening.
I think that Teddy Bridgewater becomes a starter once more, and then Teddy does pretty decent with that offensive repertoire that the Miami Dolphins have. So we'll see. Tyreek Hill, also a hot-headed wide receiver as well, but having Patrick Mahomes.
They all are. Every single good NFL receiver of all time has been a hothead. The only exception is Mike Evans. I mean, Randy Moss basically forced his way out of New England with his comments. Then the Tennessee Titans signed him after the Vikings had to release him because of his comments. He didn't do anything with the Titans, and his career was over after just 12 years, and he was still really good. And then you look at Chad Ochocinco. I mean, any receiver that's that good, OBJ, these guys are all hotheads, and that's what makes them good. And then the number one hothead, Antonio Brown. So I think any NFL receiver that's an absolute stud is a hothead.
Yeah, and maybe I was looking more for drama queen in a way, but it just come out to be hothead. But either way, whenever you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes that can fling it 65 yards, no seconds. That's
got to be the biggest downgrade that a receiver has ever willingly taken. I mean, you're going from probably a top 2 deep pass quarterback in the NFL. I mean, a lot of Patrick Mahomes' yards come from yards after the catch, but then he has the ability to throw 60-yard bombs downfield on a dime. And then you go to Tua, who averages 7 yards per pass. Like, I just don't see this working out. He's a good RPO quarterback, but if you can stop a slant, you're going to stop the Dolphins next season.
It'll be interesting to see how Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs try to win this trade, because they do get a lot of draft capital. But even in a year like this season, especially, after you get outside the top 28 to 32 picks,
you're not getting because they have to replace right now the receiver. They still need edge threats because their defensive line is no good. They fixed the offensive line problem last season that they had against the Bucs in the Super Bowl, so they're set there. But, I mean, they're going to have to trade up if they want to replace Tyreek Hill at receiver and go for a guy like Alabama's Jamison Williams, who tore his ACL against UGA in the championship game, but he's a top receiver. But, I mean, I don't think they're going to be able to find a replacement for Tyreek Hill at number 28 or 30.
I don't think so either. But I think in terms of moving forward, either way, the Chiefs were going to have to pay Tyreek.
Yeah.
At some point or another. And, honestly, I'd get rid of him now. I would have traded him as well, because he was due $19 million this year, and he said 20 wasn't enough. And now he's getting 24 to go to a much lesser thought of franchise, much lesser talented quarterback. And
I mean, the Chiefs weren't that far off from that money, and he's worth that money. He really is. But on a team that has a good quarterback that's established in the NFL, he's worth that money, like the Chiefs. I mean, he's a 6-time Pro Bowler, which is insane. I heard that for the first time today. I didn't know he's been to the Pro Bowl 6 times. It doesn't seem like he's been that good for that long, but he has been. And I just don't understand why the Chiefs decided to trade him at a point in time where they still had a Super Bowl window open. Now it's completely closed, in my opinion, with the AFC. I mean, the AFC is insane this season.
Russell Wilson, you've got Josh Allen, you've got Justin Herbert.
The young good quarterbacks are in the AFC. I mean, that's insane.
And then now Matt Ryan's in the AFC as well. Yeah. So, not saying he's going to win the big ring or win the big game or whatnot, but I think that they'll make a serious playoff run there in Indianapolis. My stooge of the week goes out to a guy who kickstarted the podcast a few months back when we first started, Coach Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer is my stooge of the week, and you think, dude, why can't this guy stay out of the news? Well, The Athletic released a statement, I guess you could say an article on Urban Meyer about the situation he had in Jacksonville and a very short-lived stint as head coach of the Jaguars. And he was quoted as saying, and do you know what would happen if I cut you guys? To a couple of players in the room, he told, you couldn't get a job paying more than $15 per hour. And that's what he told some NFL wide receivers. And then there's also another point in the story in which John Brown, who was signed on as a receiver, ran a wrong route in practice. He's a speedy receiver. He now plays for the Buccaneers. I think he's going to be probably a 5th or 6th, string guy or a practice squad guy. But Urban Meyer went up to Trevor Lawrence and said, hey, Trevor, you've got to slow it down for him, because the guy misran the route. And let's be real. This guy is he's super fast. John Brown, that's what he's known for. And then he said, Urban Meyer says, these boys from the South, their transcripts ain't right. Come on, man. Urban Meyer is my stooge of the week. He also, and I hope this was a joke. This point of it should at least be a joke. He said, who's number 99? Talking about Aaron Donald.
I guarantee you he was not joking, but this coming out from NFL players, I can't imagine how he treated college players who really have no voice, at least until this season where they can finally make money. But I can't imagine how he treated his players at Florida. Maybe this is why we saw Aaron Hernandez. I mean, that Florida team had a lot of problems, and this guy was your head coach. This could be the reason.
Yeah, it all makes sense now. And somehow Tim Tebow stayed clear of that. And I guess they all looked to Tim to try to bring the team together. And, hey, at least we have one wholly innocent person in Tim Tebow, and he's the quarterback. He's the leader of the team. So that's the only way. I really don't know how Florida Gators.
That's probably how Tim Tebow lost his talents. He was so busy trying to keep the team together. He lost all of his powers and abilities in the NFL right afterwards because, I mean, he probably put all of his energy into stopping Urban Meyer from doing what he usually does and trying to keep tabs on Aaron Hernandez and Brandon Spikes and the two brothers. Who were they? Played for the Dolphins.
Marquise Pouncey.
Yeah, the Pouncey brothers. One played for the Dolphins, one for the Steelers. I mean, those guys were all arrested at some point in their NFL career. So I feel like Urban Meyer may have played into that just a little bit.
Even bigger than the stooge of the week here. Of course, Spencer says the Chiefs and the Dolphins, the stooge of the week. I go with former head coach of the Jaguars, Urban Meyer. But even bigger than that, the big three, brought to you by Information on Demand pre-employment screening services. They're offering fast, accurate, affordable background screening services, whether you need criminal background checks, drug screenings, E-Verify, academic accreditations, or other screening services. They've got you covered. You can rest easy knowing a highly trained search team will get you the information you need in just 8 hours or less. That's right, 8 hours or less. Information on Demand. They're fast, they're accurate, and affordable pre-employment background screening services. The big three. Give them a call today, 855-914-4636, or visit informationondemand.net. Informationondemand.net brings you guys our big three. And it's a quarterback-loaded frenzy here with the big three, talking about Deshaun Watson, who's now the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. Massive contract, got cleared of the civil cases, and, was basically, hey, we're going to hire you, or we're going to trade for you, and if you're interested in joining our team, we're going to trade for you. And that's exactly what the Cleveland Browns did. They said, hey, to hell with Baker Mayfield, and comes Deshaun Watson, arguably a top 5, top 7 quarterback in the National Football League. Granted, he was out for last season, but, I mean, he's got a great repertoire of weapons there in the arsenal with the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
And now supposedly Jarvis Landry is interested in coming back to Cleveland. I don't think that'll shake out, but we'll see. Either way, or was it OBJ that said that? OBJ said he's interested. That's not going to happen, especially after his dad.
Hey, OBJ and Amari Cooper on the same squad would be a really nice receiving core for Deshaun Watson if he gets to play next season.
Yeah, I think that he will get to play. I do think that there's a 6 to 8 game suspension.
Suspended 100%. And if the Browns suck in those 6 to 8 games, depending on who they have at backup quarterback, we'll see if he even plays at all.
Deshaun Watson contract was unreal. The highest paid contract in NFL history, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen a team go this far deep into placing money into a quarterback. I mean, even the Chiefs, and you're seeing the downfall of Kansas City right now. Imagine the Cleveland Browns 2 to 3 years from now. They're going to have nothing. Nick Chubb's about to have to be re-signed. They're going to have to re-sign Amari Cooper if they want to keep him. Denzel Ward on the defensive side, Myles Garrett. How are they going? They're not going to be able to keep these guys for more than 2 years altogether. So it's win now for the Cleveland Browns. We'll see if Deshaun Watson gets to play this year, because he was cleared in terms of the civil suits, but the NFL has any free reign they want to suspend this guy. So we'll see.
And I think they will. I mean, look at Roger Goodell in the past with the Brady Deflategate allegations. Antonio Brown missed some time as well. And this is much more serious. Even if they were just allegations, just the fact that they're there, that something happened to click and have somebody be interested in trying to get Deshaun Watson in trouble. And what, 21? 22.
Like
it'd be different if it was 1 or 2. 22 of them. That's
Yeah.
concerning. But either way, he is the current quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. If he's cleared, I'm happy for him. If nothing really came,
I think it's fine. If Kobe Bryant could get away with all of his allegations for all those years, I think Deshaun Watson can do the same. Star power.
Yeah, and you talked about it. I think you said a week ago that you can live to be who you can afford to be, right?
Yeah, be who you can afford to be.
And there we go.
Deshaun Watson can afford to be whatever he wants. Just look at his contract that he just signed with the Cleveland Browns, forcing his way out of the Houston Texans franchise, which is shitty. But if you look at the Cleveland Browns track record, it hasn't been a good franchise either. So he's going to have to do a full turnaround on that. And I hope he does. I mean, the AFC is going to be very difficult. I don't see the Browns really doing anything over the next couple of years with how star-studded the AFC West just got. And that's going to be, I think all 4 AFC West teams are in the playoffs next season.
Yeah, I totally see that too. And they're just loaded in all aspects, especially at quarterback in the AFC. You talked about that. And we're going to talk more about the AFC and NFC's top divisions in National Football League here in the next couple of minutes. But to tack on to the Deshaun Watson to Cleveland chatter, Baker Mayfield was the last quarterback in quite a while to take the Browns to the playoffs. Baker is a thing of the past with the Cleveland Browns. And I don't blame him in a way because, a lot of talk came about that Deshaun Watson was going to be the guy. Here he is. He is the guy. And before anything was really decided or at least made public, Baker just checked himself out of the organization and said, hey, my time here has come to an end. He signed it with his first, his middle, and last name, posted it to Twitter, and then 2 days later is when they announced the trade for Deshaun Watson. But Baker Mayfield really screwed himself out of most opportunities, whatever opportunities there were. I do know he has more interest than a guy like Colin Kaepernick, who supposedly has 5 teams reaching out to him right now because he's in the best shape of his life. But I did have a video, and I'm not sure if I'll be able to play it right now, about Jason Licht, Buccaneer general manager, talking about Baker Mayfield and basically saying, like he did with Tom Brady a few weeks ago, he's leaving the light on to see if Baker Mayfield could or would be the backup quarterback to Tom Brady. Now, do I think that happens? Not necessarily, but the way that Licht had worded that, it made it seem like, hey, we have looked into it. I'm not going to say it happened or it hasn't happened. But the way he worded the fact that he's a player on another NFL team, another roster, I'm not going to talk too much about him. That kind of rose a flag to me and made me think, okay, I think it is a possibility. Do I think it happens? I'm not sure, but I think that they're at least weighing those possibilities, and they're trying to weigh on if Kyle Trask is for sure going to dress out, because last year the rookie Kyle Trask out of Florida never once dressed out.
I think the reason that this is a thing, the Baker Mayfield to Tampa Bay connection, is because Tom Brady just 14 days ago wasn't in the NFL anymore. And I feel like Baker Mayfield was one of the top targets for Light. It was either Baker Mayfield or Deshaun Watson. And we probably weren't ever going to be able to land Deshaun Watson. And I'm happy we didn't, because we would not be a franchise that lasts more than one more year at the top. But I think Baker Mayfield's connected to Tampa just because of that Tom Brady. But once Tom Brady re-signed with the Bucs, I just feel like Baker Mayfield, he's not coming to Tampa Bay. I don't think you should ever pay a backup quarterback that much money. He's going to command a good amount of money from Tampa unless he completely restructures his contract and takes a Jameis Winston type deal with the Saints, which Jameis did a couple of years ago. I mean, you saw Jameis take $1 million deal. Now he's been re-signed for $12 to $13 million per year. So I feel like Baker Mayfield is going to go to a team to start. He'll be traded to a really bad franchise, and we'll see how that goes from there. But Tampa Bay is not getting Baker Mayfield, in my opinion.
The Seattle Seahawks are the absolute prime definition of a team that would allow Baker to start, and it's a bad franchise right now. Russell Wilson is gone. Bobby Wagner is gone. I don't think DK Metcalf will stick around for much longer. If he does outlast this season, he's one of those drama queen wide receivers. And by the trade deadline, am I surprised if he requests a trade? Not at all.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're Baker Mayfield, out of the teams that you could be a starting quarterback for, Seattle doesn't look bad, especially if you just take like a 2-year deal or 1-year deal with them. You're going to look good. Even though the offensive line sucks, you have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett at receiver. And then Rashad Penny really stepped up at the end of last season. So the Seahawks offense could be decent if they could get an offensive line. And Baker Mayfield, I feel like, could maybe rejuvenate his career a little bit there. But if I'm Baker Mayfield, I'm not signing with the Seattle Seahawks for over 2 years, because that's not a team you want to stay with, but that's a team that could help you look good for the next couple of seasons coming up.
Yeah, that's a fair point. If I'm Baker, I think I would take, if the backup role for Tom Brady became available, I would go that route. But as you said, the way that you looked at it, I mean, he's going to be able to make his value rise, and a team will mess up and sign him for a 4-year deal in the next year and a half or two. So Deshaun Watson, off that, to talk about Deshaun Watson as the first item on Big Three. Bullet point number 2, Matt Ryan, 14 years in the NFL with the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, just an unreal quarterback, and I think that he's been dissed on for far too long, especially by Falcons fans of all people. And I'm not saying he'll ever win a Super Bowl. That Super Bowl run where they went against New England Patriots and blew a 28-3 lead, that was and is his only shot to ever win the ring, 100%.
Well, you can continue. I'll let you continue.
Thank you, Dad. But, I mean, to be fair, his numbers are insane. The guy continuously puts up top 10 quarterback numbers, more than likely a top 7 guy. And he hasn't had any help for the last 2.5, 3 years with the Atlanta Falcons. His offensive line is absolute turmoil. I don't know. I just think that Matt Ryan to the Indianapolis Colts for a 3rd-round draft pick, if the Colts can piece together, 1 or 2 big hits here in the NFL draft, and maybe make one more move next offseason, not this offseason, but the next, I think they're a contender. I really do. Do they win it? No. But they're a true contender. You saw Phillip Rivers take them to the playoffs 2 years ago. Carson Wentz didn't look terrible, and he's got bad ankles. He didn't look terrible last year with the Colts. Now, he didn't look great either, but you look at his numbers, it seemed like a very easily accessible, easy to learn system for a quarterback. Phillip Rivers, who was in the league for 16, 17 years, hopped over 1 year with the Colts, had a successful year, went to the playoffs. Carson Wentz hopped over for 1 year, had a great run there, and then lost to the Jaguars. But I think it'll be easy for a guy like Matt Ryan to pick up the playbook, work with guys like Pittman Jr., T.Y. Hilton's still there, and, of course, Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. I mean, that's a safety blanket if I ever did see one.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a challenge to make the playoffs if you're the Colts. Their division isn't that strong. I mean, the Tennessee Titans won that division last season, and then the Texans were in 3rd place. So I think they're better than the Tennessee Titans. Ryan Tannehill's not the greatest quarterback, but any quarterback that is played over a couple of seasons was an upgrade from Carson Wentz. He made too many boneheaded mistakes, but Indianapolis Colts signing Matt Ryan is a very good choice. A veteran quarterback, better than the Phillip Rivers signing a couple of years ago. And the reoccurring theme is Jonathan Taylor. All they've got to do is hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor, work off play action passes, and Matt Ryan can do that. I mean, in Atlanta, they had 2 strong Super Bowl runs when he was their quarterback. 2012, lost to the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, a game they should have won. 2016, the 2017 Super Bowl, lost to the Falcons lost to the Patriots up 28-3. I mean, a monumental collapse, but it wasn't all on Matt Ryan. So I think the Tennessee Titans really, the Indianapolis Colts really are a threat next season in the AFC, as long as Jonathan Taylor puts up the same performances that he did last season. If he can stay at that MVP level, which is very difficult to do for running backs, they don't last long in the NFL, we'll see. But if he can play like he did last year, the Indianapolis Colts could be one of the top 4 teams remaining in the AFC, and maybe, just maybe, sneak into the Super Bowl if they can run the ball well in January or February.
They have one less team to worry about now that the Kansas City Chiefs have traded off Tyreek Hill. So it will be interesting. Now, I also want to throw in the fact that when the Falcons blew the 25-point lead in the Super Bowl, it was all hell on Kyle Shanahan, and some people blame Matt Ryan. And now you look at national media, and, our friends, the Pugh brothers, reached out and said that even if they didn't blame Matt Ryan, even if national media didn't blame Matt Ryan for the loss, they never once said, hey, it was not Matt Ryan's fault. Now that Matt Ryan is off the Atlanta Falcons, you see national broadcasters and media saying, hey, Matt Ryan was so good. He never once cost this team. You look at where they put him up in position to win the game against the Patriots, and he had him in position, but a terrible play call. Back in the day when he played for the Falcons, he never once had that backup of support from national media.
Well, the reason for that is the Indianapolis Colts are a pretty good team. I mean, somehow they were only 9-8 last season, and that somehow is Carson Wentz. But the Atlanta Falcons have been a poverty franchise for the past 3 to 4 years, and they haven't done well in the draft. They haven't fixed their offensive line problems. They tried to through the draft, failed at that. I mean, they've been a crumbling franchise, and the Indianapolis Colts are on the rise. So now they're going to start making excuses for Matt Ryan and try and sell the potential that is the Indianapolis Colts for the 2022 NFL season, which I think they're going to be a pretty good team. They're definitely a playoff team. We'll see if they can make it to the big game with Matt Ryan. All he's got to do is game manage, but he's better than a game manager type quarterback. He's no Jimmy G. He's better than that. So I think the Indianapolis Colts are going to be a very good team next season, and Matt Ryan is going to be the X factor for them.
The third point on the Big Three brought to you by Information On Demand. Check them out, informationondemand.net. Tyreek Hill, wide receiver, you said 6-time Pro Bowler, is now being sent to Miami to live it up in Miami Beach, which that could also be a problem for a guy like a hot-headed drama queen, Tyreek Hill, because there's a lot of opportunity to get in trouble. I'm not saying he will, but there's a lot of opportunity down in Miami to mess around and screw things up. But Tyreek Hill leaves Patrick Mahomes, arguably the best deep threat quarterback in the National Football League. And I think that Tyreek helped make Pat Mahomes. That's clear as day. Even Pat Mahomes would say that. But the fact that Tyreek could outrun anybody at any given time, it could be an out route, it could be a slant, it could be a post route, it could be a PA comeback, a streak. And you just throw it up and lead Tyreek Hill by 7 to 10 yards, and Tyreek is going to bring that thing down. It's like a video game. For example, that game against the Bills, in which I forget the score of that game. Was it 49-42, something outrageous like that, in which Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes were just dealing. It was quarterback against quarterback. Give it to Tyreek. He was off to the races 2 or 3 times. Now he's in Miami with a quarterback that his average yards per throw, 7 yards. 7 yards. It's going to be interesting. And on top of that, look at Tua Tagovailoa. He's a left-handed quarterback.
Yep. I mean, Tyreek Hill, simple as not. I mean, he's the fastest player in NFL history, completely the fastest player. But he's only going to be a weapon now in screens or slants. And he's going to be having to come in from the left side part of the field, depending on what side they are on the hashes. That could be a challenge for the Dolphins. And then Tua has one of the slowest windups I've ever seen. So he's going to get picked off a lot if he wants to throw slants to Tyreek Hill, because safeties and cornerbacks are going to know what's coming. But if Tua can get some protection and Tyreek Hill can work some double move magic, which he did with the Chiefs, maybe, just maybe Tua will be good at the deep ball this year. I just don't see it happening, but we'll see how that goes. I see it as a loss for both teams adding him. Unless the Miami Dolphins had a really good quarterback, this isn't a really good trade for them at all.
That wraps up the Big Three. Again, Deshaun Watson, Matt Ryan, Tyreek Hill, the Big Three, brought to you by informationondemand.net. Fast, accurate, reliable pre-employment background screening services. Leading us into our next topic, do we talk hot takes? Because I think we should talk hot takes. If you have one, great, Spence. If not, I got it. Here's my hot take.
I decided to move my hot take up to Stooge of the Week, so I don't really have a hot take. But if I were to have a hot take, it's that Baker Mayfield really screwed himself over.
My hot take, yeah, and is that super hot? I don't know. My hot take is kind of hot. I think that Teddy Bridgewater is the starting quarterback for the Miami Dolphins by week 8.
Teddy Bridgewater's being paid right now more than Tua, so that could be that could happen. I mean, we saw it happen with Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Teddy Two Gloves also spoke out when asked about the quarterback situation in Miami and said, hey, that's going to stay internal within the building. I don't want to talk about Tua's job like that.
Yeah,
and
that was
that's a respectful fuck you, So,
yeah.
But moving on with Scatterbrain Sports segment right here on TCM Pod. Check us out. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook at TCM_pod. That's the Chris Mathis podcast. A couple of things that we want to talk about regarding the NFL, especially, is that this fun fact occurred to me on Twitter. Over the last 11 seasons, the Packers are the only team in the NFL to win two-thirds or more of their regular season games in an 11-year span and appear in 0 Super Bowls. Talk about the opposite of clutch.
Yeah. I mean, that comes down to the same thing with Patrick Mahomes. Rodgers was getting paid too much for them to keep any of their players, and they've had a really shitty GM over the past couple of years. And all the way back to 2011, I mean, it seems like receivers just end up leaving the Green Bay Packers for the Oakland Raiders or the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, remember Jordy Nelson left. Now you've got Davante Adams being traded. So I just don't think that signing your quarterback to the biggest deal possible is a smart option for an NFL franchise. And usually those quarterbacks don't want to leave the franchise they're on. So try and bargain them down, or else you're going to be losing your team within the next couple of years. And Aaron Rodgers to Davante Adams was one of the best connections we've seen ever in NFL history. 100% one of the best, top 10 at least. And Davante Adams just chose to leave for money because that's what you really want as a player now these days. And he didn't see the potential that Green Bay still had, even though they kept Aaron Rodgers. He still decided to leave.
Yeah, nonetheless, I also want to talk about Malcolm Butler, defensive back for the New England Patriots. And he made a couple of huge plays against Seattle. He had the big pick on the goal line. Malcolm Butler with the interception, and then that won them the game. And then we also recall a few years later, I think 2 or 3 years later, in which he was getting ready for the Super Bowl against the Philadelphia Eagles. Speaking of the Eagles, we'll have big news here in a few minutes, but Malcolm Butler did not play in that Super Bowl against the Eagles, and nobody knew why. Defensive back for the Patriots. What happened to Malcolm Butler? He was on the sidelines, didn't play a single snap, and it's a question to this day that has still not been answered. Malcolm Butler has just re-signed with the New England Patriots after 2 or 3 seasons away from the team. I find that very weird from both sides. If you're Bill Belichick and the Patriots, why did you suspend the guy? And then no matter what happened in between, even if you forgive the guy for whatever happened, you bring him back to your organization. And then if you're Malcolm Butler and you think or you know that you didn't do anything bad and you were benched for that Super Bowl, why would you want to go back? I really don't understand this whole situation, but Malcolm Butler is back, according to Adam Schefter. He's now a New England Patriot, 2-year deal worth up to $9 million. And we talked about this pre-show, Spence. I believe you said he's 30 years old now. They're trying to replace Jackson, the defensive back that went to the Chargers.
Yeah, Bill Belichick, I mean, he's known for not re-signing star players. Now they've lost J.C. Jackson, who led the league in interceptions over the past 3 years. I mean, this dude is a ball hawk. And you're replacing him with Malcolm Butler, who is 30 years old at the end of his career. I mean, it's not a good swap, getting paid $9 million for 2 years. They also have some turmoil over time in the connection between the Patriots and Malcolm Butler. So I just feel like this was a weird signing, and I feel they should have re-signed J.C. Jackson regardless of what he would cost, because that Patriots defense took a big downgrade.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting that he was willing to go back. I know it's an opportunity to play football and get paid to do it, but I don't know. That's like going back to a bad relationship and just forgiving and forgetting, which is the mature thing to do sometimes, but not in a relationship like that, especially a business-like relationship. It's like getting fired, and then when you go back to the same workplace and your boss saying, hey, we forgive you. Also, Titans have acquired Robert Woods from the Rams for a 6th-round draft pick. That's a good deal right there for the Titans.
Yeah.
He does go to a team in which Ryan Tannehill is the quarterback, so we'll see if that pans out. Give me 15, 30 seconds of your thought process there on a 6th-round draft pick for Rams wide receiver Robert Woods.
I'm surprised that's a 2023 6th-round draft pick. I mean, Robert Woods is still a very good receiver, and the Rams kind of just dumped him for Allen Robinson as quickly as they could. They got a 6th-rounder out of him. I feel like they could have got more. But the Titans get a good receiver. Maybe Tannehill will do something this year with 2 really good receivers. Didn't do it last year. The Titans are still a good team. Doesn't even matter how Tannehill plays. That team's still going to be good. But if Tannehill can get that connection going, I think it's a good trade for the Titans.
The moving things over now to the hardwood on the basketball court. Here's Zion Williamson, who was announced the fact that Zion Williamson would not play a single game the rest of this season. And then the very next day, this is uploaded to social media. So take a look now at Spotify or YouTube and check out this video we're playing right now. Zion Williamson, the day after the team said that he would not play in a single NBA game this season with an amazing dunk between the legs. I mean, come on, what the heck? I don't know if this bodes well to his comeback and his injury, or if he's throwing up the middle finger to the Pelicans and saying, hey, I don't really care what you guys are saying. I can play right now if you guys would let me.
Yeah, this dude is not ready. I mean, you can see it in the video. He barely got it. He went with a crossover in between the leg dunk, barely got up high enough for that one. It also looks like he's playing on a trampoline floor. So he looks like one of the people before the game or at halftime that dunk on the trampolines. Zion Williamson, I don't think he's ready to come back. It doesn't look like it. I'm surprised it wasn't a cooking video or him eating some ice cream or something, but the guy's too big right now. And if you're a player that plays like Zion Williamson, you can't be 280 pounds to 300 pounds if you're going to be dunking like that, because you have to land. And an NBA court isn't like that little trampoline court that he was just on. But if I'm Zion Williamson and I don't want to lose any weight, I'm looking at the Saints left tackle position that just got taken up by the Miami Dolphins. You saw Teron Armstead sign with the Dolphins. Saints need a left tackle. Zion Williamson is already in New Orleans. I mean, an easy transition from the Pelicans to the Saints if he wants to make that move over to the NFL. We've seen NBA players or basketball players from college make their way into the NFL, usually as tight ends, like Tony Gonzalez. But in this situation, we might see an NBA player go from a star-studded dunker to left tackle. We'll see how it goes.
As we near the end of the podcast here, and before we get to the breaking news regarding our next Talk to Him Tuesday guest, we gave you guys a hint throughout the show, but we want to talk about the NFC, AFC. Starting off with the AFC, pick the best division in the AFC. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
I'll go first because I feel like we're going to have pretty similar answers, at least in
Probably
the AFC. So the AFC, the best division is, of course, the AFC West. But then you also look at the AFC North. If the Pittsburgh Steelers had a really good quarterback that wasn't named Mitch Trubisky, I feel like they could challenge the AFC West after Tyreek Hill got traded from the Chiefs. But in the West, you have Kansas City, Las Vegas Raiders, Los Angeles Chargers, and Denver Broncos. That's Patrick Mahomes, Derek Carr, Justin Herbert, and Russell Wilson all in the same division. And every single one of those teams has a good receiving core besides now the Kansas City Chiefs, but they have the best quarterback out of those four in Patrick Mahomes. So that division is going to be insane next year. I'm not sure who's going to win it, especially after that Tyreek Hill trade.
Yeah, and also the Raiders now have Devontae Adams from the Packers at wide receiver. The Chargers have stacked up on defense. They made a couple of moves. They re-signed Mike Williams, wide receiver, and then the Broncos have Russell Wilson, as you said. Bobby Wagner's more than likely going to land there. And the Broncos were a quarterback away from being a 10-win team. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Drew Lock was the quarterback for the last couple of years. Now let's flip the coin over to the NFC and talk about your favorite and most dominant division in the NFC. I think we will have separate answers and ideas here with this one. Spence, you go first.
Well, the NFC is definitely not nearly as strong as the AFC now. It's not even a debate at this point. There's two insanely good AFC divisions that would beat any of the NFC divisions if you look at 4v4. But if I'm picking a division from the NFC, I'm going to go with the NFC West. The Los Angeles Rams, Arizona Cardinals, San Francisco 49ers, Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks aren't as good as they used to be. The 49ers are still going to be good. I think Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo will be a good option at quarterback for them. Then you have the Arizona Cardinals, some problems with Kyler Murray in them, but he's staying with Arizona. They're going to be at least a 10-win team. And then the Los Angeles Rams, who just won the Super Bowl. So that's two or three really good teams. And then you have the Seahawks, who might add Baker Mayfield and be maybe an 8 to 9 win team. We'll see. But I think the NFC West is the best division in the NFC.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you anymore. And I think that we're going to agree with who finishes last. It's going to be Seattle and the NFC West. So to try to make it a little bit more difficult and see if we have a different opinion here on number 2, who finishes second in the NFC West this season?
In the NFC West, who finishes second place? I'm going to go 49ers.
Okay, so that's where we differ. I'm going Cardinals again. Just because I don't, what are they going to do with Jimmy G with the 49ers? Just going to be Trey Lance at quarterback. Is he ready? They could lose the first 6-7 games. Who knows?
Yeah.
But AFC and NFC West are by far the best divisions in football, in my opinion, on both sides of the coin. Now for our big news, Talk to Him Tuesday guest next week, right here on the Chris Mathis podcast with my co-host, Spencer Mathis, TCM_pod. We're joined by Philadelphia Eagles rookie linebacker, Patrick Johnson. He's an outside linebacker. He's going to be joining us here on the podcast next week. We're going to talk about his career journey from a small high school in Chattanooga, Tennessee to Tulane after being a redshirt his freshman year. Some way climbing to become all-conference, I think 2 consecutive years, going to the NFL as a drafted linebacker by the Philadelphia Eagles, playing in several games this season and playing against the Buccaneers in the wild card round of the NFL playoffs this year. So Patrick Johnson right here on the podcast next Tuesday. Do not miss it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I'll have to throw out a poll for you guys to submit a couple of questions.
Yeah, I'm super excited. This is definitely the biggest one we've had yet. Patrick Johnson in the NFL. I mean, that's tough enough to make it to the NFL, and he's still on the Philadelphia Eagles roster as a rookie, and he got to play in the playoffs. I mean, what more can you ask for out of a rookie? A 7th-round pick, and he was a very good special teamer. He played defensive snaps, almost had an interception earlier on in the season versus the Denver Broncos. So this guy is a stud. I mean, he was very good at Tulane, one of the all-time sack leaders at Tulane, playing outside linebacker / defensive end. He's a great pass rusher, and I'm ready to see how his NFL career blossoms. And I'm excited to talk to him next Tuesday.
Yeah, no doubt. Going to be a lot of fun right here on TCM_pod. Have to shout out his sister, Mackenzie Johnson, our friend, for making this happen. We got to meet Patrick a few months ago and became buddies through that way at one of her games. And here we are. We're interviewing Philadelphia Eagles rookie linebacker heading into his 2nd season, Patrick Johnson, right here next Tuesday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, the whole 9 yards. Any final comments, Spence, as we get ready for next week?
I'm just here so I won't get fined.
Perfect. We'll end it on that. TCM_pod on all social medias. Follow Spencer at LSavageSpence on Twitter and Instagram. Check out myself as well, Instagram and Twitter at the Chris Mathis. Thanks for tuning in to TCM Pod.